Hello, Grim Squirrel here, and today I'm reviewing a book called Whalefall by Daniel Kraus. Sorry if I'm pronouncing the last name wrong. I've only ever seen it written down, so I'm unsure how to pronounce it. But I have literally just finished reading it, and I just wanted to talk a bit more in depth about it while it's fresh on my mind. This may contain some spoilers, so anyone who doesn't want this spoiled, turn away now, or I'll try to keep it relatively vague to begin with, but as it progresses, there'll be more and more about the book, and so yeah, if you don't want it spoiled, then now's your chance. Don't come complaining later because I warned you. So, the main character in this book is Jay Gardner, um, and I think he's 17 years old at this point. The reason I hesitate is because the story goes back and forth. Because as it progresses, he's thinking about stuff from the past. So one chapter will be called such and such a chapter, and then the next one might be 2014, and it'll be like, I was this age at this time, and this is what's happening. So it does jump around a little bit. Some of the chapters are what year it's referencing, which makes it a little bit easier to follow because then you can be like, oh, okay, so that's a past section. And the more recent sections are done by PSI. So it starts off at 3000 PSI, which is what I believe, his air tank is set to when he starts out. And basically he's standing at his car. I think initially he's driving along trying to find a parking space, but there's lots of people around and he doesn't want to be seen doing what he's doing, so he has to find a slightly more secluded area and parks his car, and he's just thinking back on what's brought him to this point, and it basically revolves around his father, Mitt Gardner, and his father's passed away. His father had a type of cancer, I think, but it's sort of in relation to, what do you call it, asbestos, so that sort of thing. But he'd gotten really sick and everything, and he ends up, as you find out as it goes on, again, spoilers, he committed suicide by jumping overboard into the water. And there's a long history where it goes back and forth of him thinking about stuff between him and his father. And he's sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say racked with guilt, because him and his father seem to have a tough relationship. How do I put it? He views his father as being too hard on him and not letting him do what he wants to do and bossing him around and all this sort of stuff. And he has a very negative view on his father. So it's kind of tough, but essentially his journey is based around trying to find the remains of his dad in the ocean. So he's getting ready, putting his wetsuit on, checking his weights, to help him sink and everything. checking his equipment, thinking about his tough time with his father growing up and how he'd always take him out diving all the time, and how he didn't really like it. Sometimes he just wanted to be with his friends and everything, but his dad kept harping on about all this information that he needed to know if he wanted to be diving, but he wasn't really sure about what he wanted to do. But because they ended up getting into a fight, and he ran away from home at around about 15, I think. And so he'd stayed away from everything, and his mum and two sisters had been harping on to him like, look, your father's sick, he might not be around much longer. Please, can you just resolve these issues, okay? And he's just like, no. And so when his father does pass away, there's that sort of, oh, you weren't there sort of thing. But also he has that view of, well, why should I have been there when he's given me nothing but grief? But at the same time, it's his family, it's his sisters, it's his mum, and he feels bad that they didn't have a body to bury. The body's in the ocean somewhere, they couldn't find it. And so it was just an empty coffin at the funeral, and everyone was a bit mad at him for, being a bit cruel, and they'd wondered whether it was all because of their arguments that things turned out the way they did. But he wants to show that he can be his own man, but he also wants to help out his family, and I feel like he wants to be brought back into the fold. And the only way he can think of is to find the remains of his father so they can bury it, give a proper burial, and maybe his sisters will forgive him, maybe his mother will forgive him, and it can all be sorted from there. So one thing that was weirdly brought up at the beginning is he put batteries in his pocket to help with weighting him down when he dives. And I thought that was really weird. I'm like, well, they don't really weigh much. I guess it depends on the sort that you use. And then, like, wouldn't the water affect the batteries? And it just sort of got me a little bit. That, and to be honest, Jay sounds like a bit of a dick. I know people have problems with family and everything, but he seemed a bit too over the top with his carrying on, but maybe that's just me. So yeah, he's getting ready, thinking back and forth on everything, and then he's going out to do his dive, and he's going along the beach, and he sees that there are people gathered on the beach, but they're further down the beach, and he calls them CG. I think that's supposed to be Coast Guard. And he doesn't want to be caught because you're not meant to be diving in that particular section. And so he's trying to sneak past them and everything, and he gets in the water and starts his dive. So he gets in the water and he swims out to roughly the spot where his father was last seen before he dove overboard. And he goes down and he's searching around and looking for any signs that there might be remains. He's figuring it'll probably just be bones and stuff, since he'd been, in the water. Like, fish and sea life is gonna consume the remains, and the sea sloshing about might pummel it and break it up and everything. So even if he could find a bone, he feels like that would be closure for the whole family. So he's searching around and he sees this area that's where it sort of drops off to deeper waters, and in the area that this takes place, he says there's this big, what did he call it? It's like a massive trench in the under the ocean sort of thing, a really deep section. He also mentions, in flashbacks that him and his dad used to take people out whale watching in the area, and so it's sort of like it's subtle at first because it's so natural. It's just him describing some of the jobs that his dad did and how they always seem to revolve around him being in or around the ocean because he really loved it. And so that was one of the things that was mentioned, which obviously comes up later since the book is in fact called Whalefall. So naturally there's going to be whales and mentioned in it. So he goes off to this drop-off point and he's a bit nervous, but he's buoyant, so he's not going to like fall like it's a jumping off a building or anything like that. But he still sees that drop-off and he gets a bit sort of, ooh, and he's looking around the edge in case something tumbled and sort of got caught in like coral or stuff like that. And as he looks over, he's floating out a little bit and there's this sort of swooshing sensation. And he's just like, oh, that's weird. Normally if there's, like, it doesn't seem to be a part of the current. It's just a really weird sensation that doesn't appear to be part of the normal water. Oh, hang on. Something's definitely going on here. And suddenly there's all these sort of flashing lights and he thinks, oh, am I getting the bends? Like, have I done something wrong with my tank and I'm getting all starry-eyed and stuff? And then he realizes, oh no, that's bioluminescence. What the shit is that? Holy crap, it's a giant squid. And it's shocking and also kind of wonderful. He's taken by, oh my god, I'm seeing this thing that people don't really see. It's a deep sea creature, it's rarely seen. Oh my god, I'm seeing this. Hang on a second. Why would a deep sea creature that rarely gets seen by people, rarely surfaces, why is this here? And then he hears it. The clack. The echolocation of a whale. He describes the sounds as being so booming that it shakes his bones. Obviously sound travels differently in the ocean to how it does in air, and that's some things that can be a problem for divers. Is pressure waves move differently through water than they do through air, so it can be a much bigger problem for people in the water. And so it's sort of jostling him about, and he's just like, oh my god, the giant squids come up because it's trying to escape from this whale that's trying to eat it. It's a sperm whale, and so it's got that big sort of nose part of its head, and then it's got the little mouth underneath. There's a picture on the cover anyway, so you got an idea of what it looks like. I wasn't actually sure size-wise because I've never seen a whale in person, but from what I looked up in pictures and stuff, it is possible, I guess, for a person to fit in a whale, but it would probably have to be a male because they're much larger. But anyway, so it takes a bite out of this squid and it's trying to eat it. Well, not take a bite, it kind of suctions it in a weird way. If you read the book, it's kind of, they describe it a lot better than what I'm doing right now, but the squid's, panicking and flailing about, and one of its tentacles wraps around Jay and starts pulling him in. So when the whale swallows and the squid goes in, guess who follows? Jay. He's getting pulled into this whale. He slides into its mouth. He describes, the author describes the dimensions of being sucked into this tube and then squeezed through the muscles of the throat and into the stomach. And it describes how whales have stomachs similar to cows, where there's different sections of it for different parts of digestion. And so he goes into the first part and he's getting pummeled by the squid, who's trying to escape and everything. Eventually the squid ends up getting dying, and then it gets sucked into the second section, and he's stuck in this whale. And he's panicking, but then he starts, eventually, he starts hearing the voice of his dad trying to keep him calm, but also remind him of their talks they had. And then it flashes back and forth between his childhood and what's happening right now. And it's stuff that his dad talked about with him that he at the time was just like, oh my god, why are you talking to me about this? I'm not interested. But then it turns out to be stuff that crazily is relevant here. It's stuff that he can use to try and figure out how to get out of his predicament. What if the whale dives? Is he going to be crushed by the water pressure? The pressure in the deep water? What sort of things can we do to try and, can I make the whale vomit to try and get me to come out? All this stuff. And so he's just going through all of that. And it's kind of like he's fighting all over with his dad, but it's not actually his dad. It's obviously all in his mind and from memories of what's happened. So I guess it's kind of his trauma has been triggered by this stressful event, and so he's sort of recalling that stuff in a way that's like he's having a conversation with his dad. So as it goes along, he's still trying to be his own man and still blaming his dad for a lot of stuff. But as it goes on, he starts realizing, maybe he wasn't such a bad guy. Maybe I could have done a bit better at, being a better person. Even if we had our problems, we didn't have to fight all the time and stuff. And I know I said about spoilers, but honestly, maybe I won't tell you the ending just because it was so good. Honestly, the first few chapters was sort of like, oh, this guy, why do I care about this brat who's got daddy issues? Why should I care? But as it goes on, you really start caring about this guy. You're just like, look, he's got some problems. And you just hope that he can find a way to make it work, to make it out. And it just ends up, it's really great. I absolutely smashed through that book in a few days. There's been other books that I've read that's taken weeks or even a month or something to read. But this one, a couple of days, smashed through it. It's really good. The way it ended was a bit strange. I was not expecting it. I'm not sure if that is really scientifically accurate or not, because of how strange it was. And it does partially, I mentioned earlier the batteries he put in his pockets, they do come into it. Because I thought, why would you mention that? That's a really weird thing to mention. But yes, it does come up later. And it's kind of strange. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something that can even be Googled, honestly, because I don't think anyone's really done this in real life. If they have, that's very weird. What are you doing? Um, but yeah, it just, by the end of it, I had a little bit of a cry towards the end. Not a huge one, but it was just sort of great that he's sort of come to that peace in his mind, his acceptance of, yeah, sometimes things are really shit and things didn't go the way I wanted it to. And it probably didn't go the way my dad wanted it to either, but shit happens and I just gotta keep going. I don't want to end up as fish food. Yes, I know a whale is a mammal, but shush. Anyway, but yeah, it was a really good read, and I really recommend you give it a read. The way I found out about this book was I was watching a YouTube channel called Library of Horrors. He does book reviews and he's really awesome. You should check his channel out. And he had read the book and did a review on it, and I was just like, oh, that sounds really interesting. He's like, yeah, you should check it out. And that. So yeah, I bought it almost straight away, but it took me a while to get round to reading it because I was just like, I had a whole bunch of other things that I was halfway through reading. I'm like, oh, I should probably finish that off first before I start yet another book. Because at the moment, I have like 4 books that I'm reading, and then one that I got recently that I was going to start. But then I'm like, yeah, no, I've got 4 books. I've got to finish at least one of them before I start anything else. So yeah, I was basically in that situation, but then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've only got one book now, and so I'll read Railfall finally. And on top of that, I ended up seeing that I think they're making it into a movie. I'm not 100% sure because when I tried to look up a trailer for it, I couldn't find anything. But there was a bit of a weird poster for it. And it's on IMDb, but there's not really a lot of information, so I don't know if it's actually going to be made into a movie or not. I have been talking way too much. My throat is dry. My goodness. But yeah, I mean, if it does get made into a movie, if it's done the way it was in the book, or at least very similar, it'll be really interesting to see. I know I don't have a lot of faith in movies these days, because especially when they're made off of something else, because I find it's sort of I don't know. My opinion personally, I think a lot of the time they ruin things, and you go in getting really excited about something, and you're just like, oh my god, I want to see this. Like, for example, my partner had been playing The Mortuary Assistant, and it's a great game, fantastic, and I was getting into it. It was really creepy, really scary, and it was great. And then we found out, oh, it's a movie. Okay, we'll give that a watch. It should be good. Oh my god. No, it was awful, and it did not make a lick of sense. There were parts in it that were from the game, but it wasn't enough. It just wasn't. It was awful. And I feel bad. And there's also the Backrooms. Is going to, or is made into a movie. I'd only heard of that recently, so I watched Wendigoon's review of it. Just a YouTuber my partner watches, and I just happened to be watching it too, and I was just like, oh, that looks interesting. So ended up watching it, and yeah, it looked pretty interesting, the lore of it all, and so the movie might be okay, but again, it might end up being crap. It happens, and it's annoying. But again, if Whalefall gets made into a movie, I hope it's good. It might be worth checking out, and if it's anything like the book, it'll be great. But it's hard to tell whether it'll actually turn out that way or not, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But regardless, you really need to check out the book because it was a great read. You can really smash it out quite quickly. It keeps your interest, and there are a lot of them are short chapters, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you need that feel of urgency, like I'm stuck, I need to get out, it's got to be now. And so the short chapters, I feel, sort of has that thump, thump, thump of different chapters hitting you, and so it has that sort of urgent feel to it. So I think that was used quite well compared to just having long drawn out chapters. And but yeah, it regardless, it's a great read, quick, and just it'll hold your interest, and it'll be worth your time. So yeah, check it out. So, as I said, my throat is getting really dry and sore. I have been talking a lot. Oh boy. So I'm going to go have a cup of tea and have a break. But thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've read the book or if you're going to read the book, let me know what you think of it. And if you see this after a potential movie has come out, let me know what you think of that as well. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll take my leave. See ya. Bye.